Hi, welcome to my channel. This video is going to be lo-fi, as they all are, but this one more so than the others, just because I'll be filming the audio and recording the audio with my iPhone microphone. So, no Blue Yetis in sight for this one. In this video, I just wanted to show off one of the books. I guess the only book that I got this weekend. Excuse my stomach. This book is a collection of ghost stories. So it's titled The Haunted Looking Glass. Ghost Stories chosen by Edward Gorey. And it is, as the name implies, a collection of ghost stories. Now, the inside, it said here, it says here, The Haunted Looking Glass is the late Edward Gorey's selection of his favorite tales of ghosts, ghouls, and grisly goings-on. Included are stories by Charles Dickens, Wilkie Collins, M.R. James, W.W. Jacobs, and L.P. Hartley, among other masters of the fine art of making the flesh creep, all accompanied by Gorey's inimitable illustrations. Gorey's cult of devotees numbers in the millions, and that is a quote from Salon. Gorey's works tickle the funny bone as they raise hair on the back of the neck. And that was a quote from the New York Times. Edward Gorey in New York Review Books. These Fletcher and Zenobia by Edward Gorey and Victoria Chess. He Was There from the Day We Moved In by Rhoda Levine. Three Ladies Beside the Sea by Rhoda Levine. The Unrest Cure by Saki. And Men and Gods by Rex Warner. And The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The Haunted Looking Glass. Ghost stories chosen and illustrated by Edward Gorey. What a beautiful last name. Let's see, published New York Review of Books. New York. Compilation Illustrations, copyright 1959. When was this published? 1959. Interesting. So, as for the contents of the book, we have The Empty House by Algernon Blackwood. We have August Heat by W.F. Harvey. We have The Signal Man by Charles Dickens. A Visitor from Down Under by L.P. Hartley. 13th Tree by R.H. Malden. The Body Snatcher by Robert Louis Stevenson. Man Size in Marble by E. Nesbit. Is that what that says? It is what that says. Curious. The Judge's House by Bram Stoker. The Shadow of a Shade by Tom Hood. The Monkey's Paw by W. W. Jacobs. The Dream Woman by Wilkie Collins. Casting the Runes by M. R. James. And then in the back there will be an About the Authors section. So let's go to page 253 and learn some more about the authors. I am intrigued. Okay. About the contributors. Edward Gorey, 1925 to 2000, was born in Chicago. He studied briefly at the Art Institute of Chicago, spent 3 years in the Army, and attended Harvard College, where he majored in French literature and roomed with the poet Frank O'Hara. My apologies. In 1953, Gorey published The Unstrung Harp, the first of his many extraordinary illustrated books, which include The Curious Sofa, The Haunted Tea Cozy, and The Epiplectic Bicycle. Okay. I must be pronouncing that incorrectly. My apologies. Also, if I am mispronouncing anyone's name, I apologize, as always. Algernon Blackwood, 1869 to 1951, wrote many novels and stories dealing with the supernatural and occult. The Empty House, John Silence, A Prisoner in Fairyland, Shocks, etc., and several books for children, including Dudley and Gilderoy. The dichotomy. What juxtaposition? William Fryer Harvey, 1885 to 1937, published, among other books, 3 collections of ghost stories: Midnight House, The Beast with 5 Fingers, which is also the name of his best-known story, Moods and Tenses, and a children's book, Caprimulgus. Charles Dickens, 1812 to 1870, is probably the most famous of all English novelists. Many of his stories were written for Household Words and All the Year Round magazines that he founded and edited. Leslie Poles Hartley, 1895 to 1972, is the author of 4 volumes of stories: Night Fears, The Killing Bottle, The Traveling Grave, The White Wand, many of which are concerned with the supernatural. Stinky seems to have taken an interest in that, so I may need to research further to satiate her curiosity. Richard Henry Malden, 1879 to 1951, was Dean of Wells Cathedral and the author of a collection of ghost stories in the manner of M. R. James, entitled 13 Ghosts. Robert Louis Stevenson, 1850 to 1894, the author of Treasure Island, Kidnapped, and The Black Arrow, also wrote many stories of the fantastic and supernatural, and a macabre novel, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Edith Nesbit, 1858 to 1924, is now best remembered for her children's books, including Five Children and It, but she also wrote novels, poems, and a number of ghost stories. Bram Stoker, 1847 to 1912, was the creator of the most famous of all vampires, Dracula, and the author of other novels and stories in a similar vein. Tom Hood, 1779 to 1845, was the son of the poet Thomas Hood, and himself wrote humorous verse, stories, and a half-dozen novels. William Wymark Jacobs, 1863 to 1943, was a short story writer, most of whose work is humorous and deals with coasting vessels and their crews. However, The Brown Man's Servant and several other stories are horror tales, like The Monkey's Paw. Are you trying to add to the ambiance and freak out our viewers, Stink? You're making a lot of noises. Who did I do? Okay. Wilkie Collins, the penultimate author, listed here, second to last. I just enjoy that word because it's pretentious. Wilkie Collins, 1824 to 1889, wrote two of the earliest and most famous mystery novels, The Woman in White and The Moonstone, and many stories of the supernatural. Montague, it's definitely not Montague or Montague, is it? I believe it's Montague. Montague Rhodes James, 1862 to 1936, was a medieval scholar, paleographer, provost, and possibly the greatest modern ghost story writer. His stories first appeared in 4 volumes, Ghost Stories of an Antiquary and This is really testing my vocabulary, and unfortunately I think I'm failing. I have to secure you since Stinky is... Hey, no. Not a toy. Stop it. That's not a toy. You know that's not a toy. You've never wanted to play with that before, but now that I have the camera on, suddenly everything is so intriguing. No, stop. Cut it out, sweet girl. Oh, you're pushing my buttons today. Cut it out. Stop it. Not a toy. Okay. Where was I? Ghost Stories of an Antiquary? I need to move this. More ghost stories? What does this say? More ghost stories. A Thin Ghost and Others, and A Warning to the Curious. Later, with a few additional stories, they appeared in a collected 1-volume edition. He also wrote a book for children, The 5 Jars. I'm recognizing a pattern here. I think it's very interesting how authors... What is this? It's very interesting how authors are so flexible in their genres. Why are you writing grotesque horror stories while also writing comforting and cozy and informational children's books? That's brilliant. It's such an interesting and unique skill to be able to reel in the horrors and evils of the world and to incite and invoke. How do I put this into words? It's interesting how authors are able to effectively soothe and satiate the desire for comfort in children's books, but then also satiate the desire for scary, spooky nasties in their other works. I quite enjoy that. I do. When I was, oh god, I must have been like 8 or 9, my mom got me one of those, like, publish it yourself books. Like you'd color in and like write in on a blank template for that like followed like a children's book format. She got me one of those and I wrote and illustrated a spooky, scary, terrifying story. And I vaguely remember that the monster involved looked kind of like if Sully and the Cookie Monster had some terrifying child together. It was blue and furry with red eyes, is what I'm recalling. And then I think she published it, or she got the publishing house or wherever the company was to create the book in hardcover. I don't know where that book is now. I don't have the means by which to access it anymore, shall we say. But what an interesting memory to recall. What is this? Titles in series. Titles in series. What is this in reference to? I do wonder. Because there is quite a lot of titles in series. I think that this book is going to be such a good read during this season. I think horror is best digested year-round, but because the veil is so thin between life and death, allegedly, spiritually, or so more knowledgeable people tell me, people feel more connected. The general public feels more connected and willing to participate in spooky stuff like horror movies. If you couldn't tell from the anecdote of my preteen authorship experience involving a horror story, I was introduced to horror at a very concerningly young age, and I continue to enjoy it to this day. Perhaps that is why my anxiety these days is so severe, because I catastrophize everything. I remember watching Little Shop of Horrors and Rosemary's Baby and all of the Halloween films and Poltergeist and The Exorcist and Sinister when that came out, and I watched a lot of the older films. Older at the time, they were like not even a decade old. I'm pretty sure I wasn't like 4 or 5 when I started watching them, but I was around my parents. Both of the women in my family at the time, both mother figures at the time, were very inclined to the horror genre. How interesting. It kind of explains a lot about my character Anyway, I love horror. I watch horror. I used to watch horror every single day. I would just watch random movies. I think the ones that affect me the most are the ones that disturb me on a psychological level. So I got like sick to my stomach watching Midsummer. I got sick to my stomach watching Us. It, like, visceral, deep-rooted disgust that like plants that seed. A film, a great horror film, plants the seed inside of you that just like sprouts very heavy, very dense roots that stay there even way in the future. When you're just recalling the film itself, you just feel that weight in your gut, and it's like, ugh, that's art. That doesn't necessarily make a good horror movie, but it makes a lasting impression, that's for sure. So I would like to read some of these for you guys. I was looking briefly, doing the math in my head, unreliably, and I think that the shorter of these stories is going to be August Heat, which is roughly 10 pages long. And then The Signalman by Charles Dickens, which is less than 20, I want to say. The majority of them are less than 20, actually. Yeah. The majority of them are less than 20. There is one that is over 30. Yeah, but the majority of them are quite short and sweet. I think I want to make individual videos on all of them, just because I think it would be fun, especially if you have a favorite story, or if you like one that you come across from the channel and you don't want to have to scroll through a whole video. I know a lot of people really love the super long form content, and you know, maybe I'll film them individually and then mash them together. So it's like, because some people prefer the Oreo cookie, some people prefer the filler, and some people prefer it all together. So if I break it down individually into Oreo cookie and filler, everybody's happy. That is the wet dream of a people pleaser. I think that's what I'll do. I think maybe I'll start. Which one jumps out to me the most? You know what? Which one jumps out to you the most? I will read. So at the beginning, I'll read through them one more time for you, just in case you don't want to scroll all the way back. There is, keep these in mind. Which one jumps out to you? Let me know. The first comment that I read, the first suggestion, I will make the video. Okay? I cross my heart. I don't hope to die. I cross my heart and hope to die. What does that saying phrase come from? I wonder. Pinky promise, I pinky swear. Also, I drove by a Wendy's the other day and it said on the Wendy's sign, misfortune awaits, lucky you, and I had a panic attack. I was like, is the universe sending me a sign? No, babes, that's just Wendy's marketing. Not everything is a sign. Anyway, content. We have The Empty House. You know what? I'm just gonna read the titles. I'm not even gonna give you the author's names. just the titles. The Empty House. August Heat. Sounds like romance. The Signalman. A Visitor from Down Under. From Down Under. Hope I didn't ruin that one. The 13th Tree. That one sounds so interesting. The 13th Tree. The Body Snatcher. Man Size in Marble. The Judge's House. The Shadow of a Shade. You know what that reminds me of? I'll tell you later. Sorry. The Monkey's Paw. The Dream Woman. Casting the Runes. Tell me which one you want to see and listen to first, because I think I want to do all of them. That's a good September goal, is to get all these read. What was I gonna say? The Shadow of a Shade. That reminds me, you know how when you're like in elementary school and you have a friend who has intellectual parents or sort of just like intellectual connections, and so they get told information and then just regurgitate it to you. I feel like I'm gonna do that right now, but it's like those moments when you're a kid and somebody just tells you, like, have you ever noticed that light doesn't have a shadow? And you're like, oh, there's no way you're right about that. And so you light a candle and you hold it up to the wall, and then you're like, oh my God, this is a metaphor for life. That's what that title reminded me of. The Shadow of a Shade. Is that what it was? Something along those lines. Philosophical, truly. It really always, everything always ties into Plato's allegory of the cave. I kind of want to do some philosophy videos as well, just to shoot the shit. Play-Doh. That reminds me, I was talking to one of my coworkers about a birthday party that I had when I was in kindergarten, and we made Clifford the Big Red Dog Play-Doh cookies, and they were really delicious, but I seem to misremember the taste. I think I may have just been eating Play-Doh as a kid, because apparently the cookies are not supposed to be salty. Anyway, Stinky's coming over to tell me that I need to go to bed because I'm a little bit delirious and a lot bit exhausted and sleep deprived. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you get a good night's rest and enjoy the upcoming videos where I read some of these spooky stories. I'm excited. Happy September, and good on ya for making it this far. I'll see you later. Bye. Say bye, Stinker. Okay. Bye.